Welcome to the top global ranked and award-nominated Grad School Femtoring Podcast, the place for first-gen BIPOCs to listen in on conversations about grad school and growth. In this podcast, you'll learn about all things higher education, personal development, and sustainable productivity. This is Doctora Yvette Martinez-Vu, and I will be serving as your Femtor, providing you with tips and tricks and everything else you need to know to successfully navigate grad school and beyond. For over 14 years, I've been empowering first-gen students of color along their personal and professional journeys, and I'm really excited to support you too. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Grad School Femtoring Podcast. This is your host, Doctora Yvette. Today, we're going to be covering the topic of femtorship and career mapping beyond the academy. We actually have a returning guest today. Her name is Doctora Lauren Mason Carris, a first-generation scholar. Lauren transitioned from academia as a language and identity researcher to become a human-centered digital product leader. Her journey spans 20 years across multiple industries, leveraging her interdisciplinary background and intersectional experiences. As a people-first product leader, Lauren excels at balancing product and people leadership as she champions the development of transformative tools, digital solutions, and human capital strategies that enhance both organizational culture and individual career trajectories. Welcome back to the podcast, Lauren.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here again.
Yay. So I don't expect you to cover your backstory again. I'm actually going to link the former episode in the show notes. That was episode 113, where you came and talked about personal brand design and personal development. And you gave us a little bit more background on who you are, where you come from, also how we know each other, which is kind of nice. So check out that episode if you haven't. But for folks who are new and maybe don't have a chance to check out that previous episode, is there anything else you'd like to share briefly, or would you like to introduce yourself maybe in a way that's different from what I shared? You could even maybe share some fun facts.
Yeah, I will. Okay. So my name is Lauren. I go by Lauren. I don't actually use the prefix doctora or doctor as much. That was a strategic decision that I know is very complex. But I have found in the world, in the private sector, and particularly in business, it is sometimes challenging to come to the table with very ego-driven individuals who do not come from an academic background. So it can sometimes be a hit to their ego. It can sometimes be a barrier to authentically engaging and getting business done. And it can sometimes be a turnoff, I think, to the ways that people hear what I have to say. I have been told many times when I have doctora or, PhD next to my name, people comment on my $1 million words and how I need to maybe dumb them down for people. And I think it's super interesting because I don't know that they would say that, A, if I were a man, and B, if I didn't have that in front of my name. And so it's just, I wanted to start this introduction off by sharing that intersectional identity and the way that that plays out, I think, in day-to-day in the private sector outside of academia, which we will talk about. So since we last met, it's been 2 years, maybe 2+ years, around there?
I think so, yes.
Yeah. So since then,
at least a year and a half.
Since then, I can share a lot about layoffs and a layoff experience. I was a recipient of one of the dreadful calls in tech layoffs. I could talk about that a little bit and what that has done for me personally, but also really how that has influenced my commitment to femtorship, my commitment to seeking sponsorship, and my commitment to career mapping. So all super relevant. Today, I work with an incredibly talented team of software engineers and software development leaders as part of a consultancy agency. In fact, we deliver software solutions to tech companies or organizations that need help with their tech roadmap. And I serve in the role of product leader that wears many hats, but my sweet spot is really around research and discovery. And so put a pin in that one for career mapping and the pathway outside of the academia or academic setting. Research and development, user experience research, strategy, purpose and why. And something that is not identified as a skill per se, but I think is a strength, is translation. And I don't mean from Spanish to English or from Mandarin to Spanish. I mean translating jargon, translating purpose, translating vision or big ideas from executives or founders into executable tasks that keep developers and super skilled engineers both inspired, that keep them driven to contribute at the highest level of quality, and that keep our whole team really balanced, which is something really important in consultancy. As you well know, serving the client is critical. But if you don't know the client's needs or they can't communicate them because they know what they want, they might just not be using the terms or the words or the map or the visual that would help the rest of your team really execute. And so I love that role of translating, of bringing ideas and taking them to action and working with, I just get super excited about working with developers and engineers and being able to make things come alive. So that's the work I do now. I will briefly share also how I came into it because it is a relevant story. At the time when I was laid off, I tapped into my network to very quietly and personally share what had happened. I was not ready to share it on LinkedIn or on social platforms. I did not include the ready to work kind of logo or looking for work, open to work. I don't remember what it is. I carried a lot of personal shame. A lot of that shame, I think, stems from reflecting on my choice to leave the academy. And this was a choice that I made, but I felt agency and also guilt. I was guilted about making a pathway forward when I was doing really well with academic research. I was doing really well with publishing. I had a professional identity. Why would I do that? I think first gen, we have a lot of those similar stories, whether it's with our family or the academy, but it was my choice nonetheless. And every one of my career movements had been on my terms. This was the first time it was not on my terms. And that was a major hit. So it took me some time to recover. Fortunately, I tapped into my network and found a really great sponsorship with a partner agency, Codingscape, who actually helped me just prior execute on my technical roadmap and on my technical goals. So I was the client. They were helping me. And I just reached out to them and let them know. And they were incredible, especially Jimmy Jacobson, who is one of the co-founders. And he shared along with his team, we are big fans of yours. We believe in you. We know what work you can do. May we sponsor a ticket for you it was a design conference. And that moment of sponsorship with no strings attached, no we need something from you or performance-based, you're going to do this only if you get that achievement. It was truly a sponsorship and advocacy. And it was the first time that I had experienced that with literally no strings attached. I don't think we experienced that enough. And so I really want to advocate for that and advocate for leaders to use their resources to sponsor more, not just women in tech, but more women of color, especially in tech. And just broadly speaking, women of color who are showing promise and rising. It's one thing to say, yes, I support you in theory. And it's another thing to actually pave the way for them and pay for opportunities. Cut to today, I pitched a human capital design project as a scaling organization. Codingscape was really curious about how to maintain the highest levels of senior development execution and software delivery expertise while they grow. And very importantly, with this value of people first, tech leadership, how do we help even our most senior team members continue to expand their knowledge base, continue to stay motivated and inspired, continue to see pathways, and then how do we trickle that down for even more junior folk and potentially internships? This is unlike any approach I have ever experienced in the private sector, where most of the time they're starting from junior level and then make a lot of assumptions about what leadership might look like and some pathways, forward. This was much more about backwards design and the evolution of some of the most senior team members. So it's been an awesome project that I've been doing alongside, the other product consulting, but super related to the topic and to these, ideas of pathways.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned how important it was for you to have this opportunity, this sponsorship with no strings attached. And I see that as directly relating to the topic of femtorship. So I'd love to kind of go straight into that topic, and I'd love to hear your perspective on femtorship and eventually also transition into the career mapping as a term too, because I think that not everybody who listens may have a clear idea of what we mean by femtorship, by career mapping. But yeah, let's start with femtorship and how you define it and how that's played a role in your career development.
Yeah, I think femtorship is really a combination, a blend of female and mentorship. And truthfully, the first time I started engaging with the term was with you and your podcast. And it became, it was really insightful, thinking specifically about the nuance, the needs, the evolving landscape of women who are rising from and in a very unique social moment where career option and, be it in academia or in tech, wherever it is, career options, career representation, seeing women in leadership roles, right? And social norms that are really evolving. We hear these stories of, and we see the data of more and more women in the workplace. We also see the rising cost of childcare. And we see the rising cost of raising families, the emotional and financial burdens that women are really left to themselves to try to navigate. And how important it is to have women who are advocating, guiding, mentoring other women along these emerging definitions of independence, of financial independence, of owning our own career journeys, which used to be predefined, right? You commit to a career and you're in that career until you die and, or until you retire. And it's not like that anymore. And so really the power of other women, peers, but also executive women being able to coach and guide, and business leaders and executive male allies, bringing those opportunities to women is so critical. So that's, the definition is really that meld of female and mentorship, but certainly nuance to the changing gender dynamic in the workplace. And I feel like it's changing every day, the social norms and the imbalance of what it means to be a woman in work.
Right. And two things come to mind right now. One is that folks are no longer just going into one job and staying there until they retire. And two, that it's important for folks who consider themselves allies, comrades, to be the ones to also be supportive of femtorship, to also be providing opportunities for them. So I'm curious about femtorship and how it's played out for you. I know you've already mentioned a couple of examples, or even not necessarily of folks supporting you, but even the other way around of you supporting others. If you can say a little bit more about that.
I will start with my experience in graduate school. And I found two women in particular, Linda Jensen and Janet Goodwin. They were both lecturers, not tenure professors. And they were both so extremely happy with their work-life balance. So happy as mothers, multiple children. And I often asked them, like, why didn't you pursue the academic tenure route? Why do I feel like your guidance and mentorship is so unique and so different compared to that of my tenured faculty advisors? And I really dug into it at that time and felt like, is it even possible to live the kind of life that I want to live as a mom if I pursue that, right? What does it mean to uproot yourself, right? Should you be the primary decision maker and breadwinner to traverse multiple geographic locations in pursuit of that ideal and evolving academic tenure track? What will that do for me and my life and my family? And it was unknown at the time, but the impact of, me losing both of my parents and increasing the scope of my motherhood, like overnight, to go from being a mom to an infant, a newborn, to then taking on being a 6-year-old and like immediately jumping into parenthood of like the school age experience. It was wonderful to have the mentors, femtors, who were able to support that family kind of rooted opportunity that I didn't see. Maybe it was my own naivete. Maybe it was my own, it could have been a lot of things. I didn't see it in the same way with my tenure academic advisors and mentors. And so that really stuck with me about this role of family and defining the kind of way that you want to raise and lead your family and what career options there might be. So that was early on. They were very transformational in that way. And moving into private sector then, I was always looking, where are the other executive women who also have families? Where are the other executive women who are maintaining a healthy partnership with their spouse, should they have one? The rate of divorce, right? The rate, and it's not a judgment on people, it's just a pattern. And it was so visible to me. I did not want to become another statistic. How do I pursue, and what do I need to do in my personal life? And where do I find other women, especially, who are navigating these demanding careers and being parents, right? And committing to nurturing their relationship with their partner. Where are these women? Is it possible? So it's always been something that I've sought out, and fortunately have found several women along my career trajectory who are doing those things, but it's something that I'm explicitly seeking. And I wish there were a lot more executives and leaders who were able to match. And I think we're now seeing programs that are emerging. I'm part of Silicon Slope's Women in Leadership, and we are cultivating mentorship programs. And this particular cohort, we had a really challenging time getting enough executive mentors.
Yeah.
Why? Their plates are full, right? I think we see this a lot. No shortage of mentees, but a real shortage of mentors who can continue to commit. You see a lot of them at like mid-career level, but then where are all of the executives? They're in the really high profile, expensive executive women groups, and they should be compensated for their expertise. But how can we support more of that to be accessible for women who maybe can't afford to be part of that exclusive membership club?
Yeah, what I'm hearing from you is something that I hear from people across the board, across industries, whether they're professors as they rise up and become full professors, folks who are pursuing the C-suite, folks who are in entrepreneurship. As you move up, it feels as if there's fewer and fewer folks who can show up as a mentor or femtor. And it's unfortunate, but it also sounds like one of the things that you've done is you've been pretty proactive about seeking it out instead of assuming that it's just going to fall on your lap. And that's one of the things that I tell a lot of my listeners is that when it comes to mentorship, that you need to take the initiative and follow up with folks. And I know that's hard, but that's going to help you to sustain these relationships. I'm curious if this is a good time to transition into career mapping, because I think that who you choose to become your femtor or who you seek out also will have an impact on your career. And I'd like to just start with the 101. What even is career mapping? Also, I've heard the phrase career design.
Mm-hmm.
When you say career mapping, is it similar to or different than career design? So let's just go, with the basics first.
Yeah, I think career mapping is a requirement for career design. So I would say career design is big macro umbrella, right? Where it's an active, continuously improving, nebulous, always changing strategy. And career mapping gets into the specific connection between roles, levels, skills, competencies, requirements. So it gets into the details that then help one see, be inspired, and eventually design, right, their career trajectory. So career mapping, I think, is really essential in terms of digging into those details. I think the roots really come out of organizational psychology and human resource management, right? So you hear these terms and you see the people that are super passionate typically come out of either HR or, like me, someone who's been in higher education, who's also worked on products for these services, right? Either learning design and competency-based, skills-based learning, right? Where you have to get into the skills and the outcome and what is it expected to do, right? Or folks that are in that sort of maybe even founders and organization leaders who are really committed to the growth and development of their people, right? So those domains that are usually really, and where you see a lot of the conversations today around career mapping. But it's really interesting to look at the rise in popularity of career mapping. Like, why is it now? Why are we talking about it now? Why were our parents not talking about it, right? Why were the generations prior who are, by all definitions, either successful or reached the pinnacle of their career, they didn't do any of this? And I think a lot of that has to do with the rise of the gig economy, a lot of job mobility. I think a lot of disruption in the workplace and work environments due to technology, and absolutely due to the internet, the increasing access that we have. It is mind-blowing when you think about it. Today, my kids, our kids, can pick up a smartphone device and literally ask Siri, tell me what a Femtorship podcaster does, and something will come up, right? But that was completely unavailable even like half a generation ago, right? So we're starting to see more jobs and more job types. We're starting to reclaim our own balance and our own goals and aspirations and rethink, what does my lifestyle design look like and how does career fit into it? And we're also starting to see, I think, and redefine our relationship with money and work, in that almost no one anymore is going to be financially successful when they are completely dependent on one employer. Some might be, but they probably have a lot of years under their belt and they've probably been contributing to some sort of revenue generating system, be it a 401k or stocks and bonds, or right? But all of these like multiple paths towards financial freedom and financial success, I think, are really triggering a lot of opportunity for people to think differently about their careers. And so this issue of career mapping, I think, is super interesting for all of education, right? How do we expose young people to the hot careers, or the in-demand careers? And then how do we upskill them so they're eligible for those hot careers? And how do we mobilize communities who have traditionally been underserved, underrepresented, underemployed, right? And so this whole concept of career mapping regionally, by industry, by skill, right, by levels, it's just for anyone interested in data and information architecture, right? Like, I just go immediately to visuals and mapping.
Oh my gosh, those last questions you just asked are such big, open-ended, important questions. I kind of want to go there, but then I'm like, wait, I think this is going to become a 2-hour podcast.
Let's get that one for version 3.
But exactly. There we go. V3. Let us know if you want Lauren to come back again. I'm happy to have her back. Oh, what's funny? Last time you were here, you were talking about personal brand design and you're talking about personal development. And I felt like I had some acquaintance with those terms and those areas. And it still felt like I was learning so much from you. Like in some ways a lecture, in other ways like just that femtorship of you guiding, teaching me, which I love that we're recording it because then other people get to learn. But I feel the same way with your conversation around career mapping. It's like I have exposure to that topic. I have some familiarity with it, but I love how you really go in deep. And I appreciate too that you shared, so why is this becoming more prominent? Why are people even more interested in this? Why are they being more intentional than maybe in years past? I even think I'm a millennial. Like in my youth, pre-internet, when I thought about careers, I thought about who I saw in school, in my community, and maybe on TV, and that was it. And it was just a couple of career options. But then I think to myself with my 10-year-old, he just started 6th grade, and every year we do that picture, of like this is how old I am. This is what grade I'm in. This is what I want to be when I grow up. I asked him what he wanted to be, and to my shock, he said, financial advisor. I was like, wait, what?
He wanted to be,
and we had exposed him.
The guy in finance. Oh no!
This is like, wait, what? But I was just thinking about access to information, and it's for better or for worse. It's there. It can definitely be overwhelming, and I'm thinking about the listener right now who might be feeling like this is a lot. How do I narrow this down? Like, what's a baby step? How do I get started? Do you have any strategies or tools or resources just to help someone even get started with learning more, or with that baby step to start to map their own career?
I do. So you might remember I worked with an incredible team to launch self-discovery and career exploration app. And it was called Find Your Grind. It's not available to the public. It's really for K-12 setting and specifically, the CTE domain. They're doing wonderful things now. But a lot of the strategies that we incorporated into the DNA of the experience are strategies that you see with a lot of coaches and a lot of self-help books. And so I'll give you the rundown for anyone who wants to kind of kickstart and re-inspire. It's essentially the basis of design. And you start with self-awareness. Who am I? What are my strengths? What do I like to do? Right? And we may remember way back in the career office where you would go and you would take your Myers-Briggs, or you would take the DISC assessment, and the language felt so foreign, right? And they would kind of attach it to these really stereotypical careers. Part of what career mapping has done now is blown all of that up to look more at what is the essence of a career and map that. So I would recommend starting with, and there's a million apps that you can use, but there's something called human design. And it looks at your birth chart. It looks at your inherent soul contract, right? Your strength, the ways that you might eat food, and that could be disrupting your inspiration, right? So go to any kind of, human design and just put your information in and read through that and start to see what resonates. Undoubtedly, some things will be like, yes, that's me. And others will be like, that's interesting. Yeah. But human design, your birth chart, the Myers-Briggs, and you can find like 16 personalities. All of these assessments and batteries are giving clues about you, what you do well, where you shine, what ignites you. And those are all critical components, because you will not do well in a career that is a mismatch, right? I love to engage with people, which is why I love the research and discovery part of product. I love to work with stakeholders and ask questions and then put it into pictures and ask them if that makes sense to them, right? It would not be good. I would not be a good developer, because it's very much a little bit more introverted, a little bit more isolated, and that would not ever be a good career for me. But I love working with engineers, right? So being able to really understand yourself and doing a skills inventory, right? What are the skills, and particularly for anyone in academia, what are the skills that you are perfecting that take work that you don't like? What are the skills that are actually strengths? Like, you get excited about this part of the work. It's not energy depleting, it's energizing, right? Those self-assessments are really, really important, and they should be happening at every stage of everyone's career. But that's a really good place to start. And then playing those skills back to others, looking at job descriptions. Where am I seeing some of these skills emerge as power skills, right? Even 5 years ago, information that was available about job descriptions, never mind how useful they are or not, but just play with me here, felt very difficult to access. Today, you can go on LinkedIn and you can search. You can, first of all, do your own skills assessment there, right? And then you can start exploring and searching and looking at transferability, right? What matches? Some clues might be things like research and analysis in academia, project management. You got to keep a timeline, got to know what's due, when it's due. Stakeholder management. You've got to get your advisor to give you feedback within a certain period of time, and you still have to edit that. Teaching and communication, grant writing and fundraising, collaboration and teamwork. Like those are just high level competencies that are truly transferable across industries, right? But if there are a couple of those that you don't really love, don't focus on those. Look for something else. If you don't actually love research and analysis, you should not be highlighting that as a transferable skill, because you will get and find then roles that require that. And why? Just because you've done that. If you don't like it, don't do it, right? So evaluating and doing that self-assessment of who you are, what energizes you. Also then, what skills am I developing and what is an energy conductor versus a depleter, right? We all have parts of our work that's just depleting. You don't want to go find jobs where that's your main thing. That's a terrible, terrible approach. So yeah, those are my just like quick tips and where to start.
Those are great. I'm actually going to link some of those in the show notes, some of the different assessments or charts, Actually, I can't not ask you, what is your human design? What is your type?
Yeah, no, I'm a projector. So for anyone who knows that, projectors are, let me find a good little quote here. A projector has a gift of seeing things in the ways that others can't. It's like, totally. That's why I love whiteboarding and I love research and discovery sessions. And I love translating from one stakeholder to another to actually execute on shared meaning. Like it's exactly what I need to be doing. So yeah, that's the high level. What about you?
I'm a manifester.
And why?
And once I read the description, I was like, oh yeah.
I was going to say, why is it that you're laughing?
Oh, I'm laughing because I only recently got into human design. Someone asked me, they had this impression of me, and I was like, I don't know. I checked, and then I read the description, and I was like, oh, that makes sense in terms of liking to initiate things, kind of starting things. Sometimes I just start things without sharing with the world. I just do it. And one of the things that's a recommendation for manifestors is to communicate and to share with others, and also needing space. Like you can't always be around people all the time. So you mentioned I love being around people. I do too, but within reason. I need my personal time as well.
That's an interesting and important point in the career mapping. I think, again, 5 years ago, remote work meant something very different. Today, remote work and remote first work for anyone who both gets energy by working with others and needs deep work time. Those are very important clues to the kinds of careers and the kinds of career setting that will be really important. I have learned now, as much as I love being around people or connecting with them, being in an office 5 days a week from 9 to 5 will not work for me. I value my deep work time, and being able to do that, my inspiration time is 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. I can't do that every day, but I need a couple of days where no one is bothering me and I'm able to do that deep nighttime work. And if I'm only evaluated on my performance from 9 to 5 in an office, it's never going to work out for me.
Right. And I know there's a lot of us like that. And it's about taking note of the cues and all of the things that you should. I feel like they're all just tools. Like you can make of it what you want. You're like, oh, human design, it might not resonate with you. That's okay. But just this is all information to help you get closer to determining what will work for you. And that's part of what's going to help folks with the career mapping process. I'm curious for folks that, let's say they have a direction, they have an industry or an idea they want to go into. It might be different. I have a lot of grad student, undergrad listeners. They're a little unsure about their career future, but they have some industries in mind, or maybe one industry that they want to transition into. You're very, very good with the translation aspect of it, which I know not everybody is. And you also said that you've been proactive about seeking femtorship. So I'm curious about what are some ways that our listeners can begin to be more intentional and strategic about the femtors they reach out to, and even about doing things like reaching out to others, informational interviews, gathering the right info, learning the language. Like there's so many aspects of the process of transitioning careers. And a lot of times when you do career mapping, you realize I might need to make a switch. So I'm curious, what are your thoughts about this? And it's a big open-ended question, but whatever comes to mind on this.
Yeah, I think it's critical to get real feedback. So that might mean cold calling or sending a cold LinkedIn note to an aspirational mentor, right? Or someone you would love to be guided by. You're going to have to just play and learn and see. Some people are open to it, some are not, right? But getting out and getting that real feedback. How is it that people are responding to me? What is it that I'm using in my message to them? And be explicit. I am a maybe first generation Latina looking to move into tech. I would love to have a conversation with you or anyone you could point me to that has time, and give options, right? Maybe you could just record a soundbite or a quick little video and send that, and ask synchronously when you have 5 minutes, just record something here. People are busy and people really appreciate that empathy for others' busy schedules, right? Without demanding it. So that's one recommendation, but really getting that honest feedback, and that comes with, testing and iteration, right? Sending your messages. There are so many communities out there. I mean, now like you can do searches and find Slack communities for the industry, or again, through cold call messaging on LinkedIn, direct message. Do you have a community that you might recommend that I join? Right. And I will return back to, what was it? Episode 131, your personal brand. How are you communicating about yourself and what you want to do and where you want to go? What are the hashtags that you're using in your posts? Right? What communities are you engaging in so that you're starting to at least point people to your interest in that area so that you can get access, right? So cold calls, cold connections through some of your research and finding a mentor, communities and community engagement, and asking around. People are surprisingly helpful. Yes, busy, but surprisingly helpful when you are intentional and explicit. What do you want? Why are you here? Where are you looking to go? And that can feel really scary, I think, for some people. Like, I'm not ready to commit. Well, if you're not ready to commit, the universe is not going to have the roadmap ready for you. You're not ready. Right? So try out. I can't tell you how many bios I have written. I was going through some of my own documents and looking at old bios that how am I going to redraft this and reposition myself? And what's my brand right now, given what I've done, right? It's a constant assessment and revision practice. And so practice the drafting of your bio in the future you. Let's say you are in that crossover industry. How do you want to write about yourself? Just practice. And then start backwards planning and backwards mapping, right?
Yeah. We're actually getting close to wrapping up. I want to be mindful of the time. So before we close, I wanted to ask you if there was any question you wanted me to ask. And if not, feel free to share any closing words.
Don't think I have. We pretty much followed my notes. In fact, this is exactly how there's an example of manifesting, right? Exactly how I imagine the conversation to go. So no specific questions that you haven't asked, but I'll turn this back to you. Are there some questions you think your listeners might still be asking that I could maybe follow up on or share some links with you on? I'd love to share my favorite, personality assessments and tools with you also, but is there something else you think your listeners are still going to be curious about?
I think that with sharing the previous episode you were on, the different assessments and tools, I know you said you're a big visual person. So if there's anything visual or anything that you know that's helped you in your own career mapping, happy to put whatever's easy for you to share in the show notes. Don't want to cause more work either. So the tools, you already shared a plethora of different strategies. You really kind of dived into the topic very, very well. My biggest question was like, well, how do we do this? And also like, how do we find mentors, femtors? Those are questions that come up a lot. We already discussed them. But really, I'm also curious just how folks can stay in touch with you, connect with you. I'm sure folks will resonate. I'm sure there will be folks who see you and aspire to go in a similar career track or career direction or map their career in similar shoes as you. So yeah, how can folks connect with you or be in touch with you or follow you in your work?
Yeah, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. I think that's the best social media platform to find me. So feel free to reach out. I do scan messages and do respond to them. So yeah, feel free to reach out there. I think in terms of a call to action, we should all be advocating, supporting, and engaging in femtorship in some capacity. There are lots of communities. There's Latinas in tech. There's Latinas in higher education. There's, I mean, you can use the tools we have every day. You can even use AI tools like ChatGPT. Provide me a list of the top ranking female mentorship communities for whatever industry, right? Really use the tools that are available to us and start exploring. And maybe, Yvette, we could start curating a hit list of women-centric mentorship programs. And we could create a database so that more of your listeners and the expanded network can really find themselves and give back to communities.
I love that. We have to have a follow-up call after this. That's such a great idea. Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. You're always here with the good ideas. This is why you were and still are a femtor of mine since I was a little undergrad, because I just learned so much from you, and it always feels like such a gift to be in a shared space with you. So I want to thank you, Lauren, for coming on the show again, for taking time out of your schedule to share all these nuggets and words of wisdom. I really appreciate you coming back.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And it is my honor to have served as your mentor at one time and for now us to inspire each other. Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining me in the Grad School Femtoring Podcast. If you like what you heard, here are 4 ways you can support the show. The first is to make sure you're subscribed and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. If you email me a screenshot, I'll send you a surprise freebie. The second way is to get your copy of my free Grad School Femtoring Resource Kit, which includes essential information to prepare for and navigate grad school. You can access it at the link in today's show notes. The third way to support my show is to follow me on social media. You can find me on Instagram with the handle @GradSchoolFemtoring and on LinkedIn by searching my name. The last way to show your love is to order a copy of Is Grad School for Me?, my graduate school admissions book for first-gen BIPOCs. Thanks again for listening, and until next time,